All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like us to get started because it's a full program. Some people are running behind probably, but just in the interest of time, let me kick this off. Thank you so much, first of all, for coming. Welcome to the Alumni Center at Northeastern. My name is Hamit. I see obviously a lot of familiar faces, but also some new ones. So I'm a senior director with the Institute for Experiential AI here at Northeastern. It is a great pleasure to be hosting today. We kicked off with a dinner last night, and we have a full day program, a morning session, in the style of a conference. We'll have great speakers and panels, and then in the afternoon we'll have a workshop, and there'll be plenty of opportunity for you to share whatever is being learned and discussed here with the rest of the world through publishing content afterwards at the Harvard Data Science Review. So that's very briefly the plan. I'd like to thank the team who made this possible. We have, in addition to people you might have met, we have 6 or 7 student volunteers today with us. So thanks, to them for their help. You'll be seeing them, throughout the day. I would like to thank our colleagues at Harvard. They were great hosts last night. Harvard Data Science Initiative is a co-organizer of this event, along with the Institute here at Northeastern. So with that, I'll like to first invite Ron Rintala. Ron is the CEO of LibertySource, which is the main sponsor of this event. We're grateful for their support. He'll make some short remarks, and then we'll get the program kicked off. Ron?
Good morning. Again, I'm Ron Rintala. I'm CEO and president of LibertySource. We make a suite of data services products under the umbrella of data information. So all the various things you have laying around here and books and swag and so on are all from that. So it's an honor to be here. We look at participating in a lot of things that get the conversation going around data. And that's really primarily, as we see it, when we look at the evolution of technology from what used to be a hardware-centric to application-centric to now data-centric, we really look at the notion that hardware and applications are table stakes. They're almost disposable. They don't offer you today any real competitive advantage over anything, any other organization or whatever. Really, data does. And when you look at how people look at data, how we feed our systems with data and so on, it's a very interesting thing around data literacy. What we find in the marketplace, for example, is that it's remarkable, but we often find people don't even know what questions to ask around, when they're buying AI platforms, for example, or using ChatGPT or whatever. I think there's this belief in this notion of magic. So this notion that technology is disposable, it's kind of harsh for technologists, but I think it should be really empowering for people in the data world. Data is the true differentiator that we're seeing in today's environment between success and kind of, competitive failure. So, for the longest time, though, data was seen as a byproduct. People stored it, they moved it around, they analyzed it, but it was never really seen as a true competitive advantage. Then enter AI, right? And what we see pretty much is this notion of people see, and it's been advertised like this, AI is almost magical in itself. I've been in this role for a little under 2 years, and it's kind of stunning every day how many people think they can buy a Gen AI system, for example, plug it in, and my environment's just going to get better. Or I'm going to use ChatGPT, which is even more dangerous, and I'm going to take basically public information, and all of a sudden that's going to give me some competitive advantage, rather than using my own data, which is really the strength of my company, my customers, my data, my information. That's going to really provide a competitive advantage. So, I think this notion of we're at an interesting inflection point with AI, for example, where people are starting to recognize that it's not really working like they thought. The investment that people have made in AI doesn't necessarily come true. And all of a sudden, people are very wary of, am I spending money on something that doesn't work or doesn't work like it was advertised? The issue is it's not the technology. The technology, AI technology, and whichever platform you talk about is great. The issue is a lot of this technology was born in labs with pristine data, and all of a sudden you put this same stuff in the real world where data is super messy, and all of a sudden it's a different environment. And the notion of really success in AI, for example, comes down to two things, we think. One is that companies need to have use cases that they understand, and they really have to have the context for what they're trying to accomplish with these systems. Otherwise, you can't just get AI or install AI. It really is, what are you using it for? What outputs, what opportunities you're trying to look at? The second notion is, what data are you putting in there? If you're just putting in your traditional rows and columns SQL data that you've always used, you're really not going to get any lift. 80% of data today that we can tell is produced as unstructured data. Video, audio, PDFs, name it. And unless that data is put in ingestible form and really used and understood by the people that are implementing AI, it's almost really never going to get the differentiating factor that you'd expect out of your AI investment. So we tend to look at it. We've had conversations with platform vendors, for example, the guys who build this. And they're very interesting because it's not in their model to worry about the data. They're very firm about that. And we've been actually, we have some of our sales guys here, we've actually been shushed by some of the AI vendors, like, don't bring that up to our customers because that'll confuse them. Like, we've told them this stuff is going to work. And we're like, it's shocking, And so this notion of getting your data right, having the right sort of framework around use cases, and ultimately, it's a sequence of thought. What are you using it for? What's your enabling technology? And are you fueling it with high quality, high feature data? And if you're doing that, you have a chance of success at something like AI. If you skip any of those steps, you're going to have troubles, and you're going to wonder, what did I buy here? So it's not an AI conversation, but it's really talking about the power of data, right? So something like a data literacy initiative, it's super important to us because we see it every day, and we see it as so strategic in terms of making this conversation much more open and teach people, here's what you should be doing, here's how you think about data, here's how you look at data, and here's how you can use data in the way that really enables the technology that you invested in. So, I'll leave you with one thought, and we talked about a little bit about this last night, but for the longest time, people talk, in the hardware and application environment that, everybody talks about bugs and gremlins and so on. And we've kind of coined this phrase around, it's not your environment, it's not it's not your technology, it's the data dummy, and it really catches people's attention around focus on your data. And I'm glad the initiative is here. I'm more than happy to invest in initiatives like this because it really needs to be a conversation that everybody needs to have. So super important, super happy to be here, and hope everybody has a great time. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks for the support. For his opening remarks, I'd now like to invite Usama Fayyad, who's the Executive Director for Institute for Experiential AI at Northeastern. Doesn't need much introduction. I haven't checked this with him, but I know that many of you know Usama as a pioneering leader in the area of machine learning and AI for a few decades now. We are honored to have him lead our institute and also to be here today. Usama, please.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for for coming in despite the our experience of first snow, I guess, this season. So the few remarks I wanted to say are actually very consistent with what you just heard. So where to start? Data literacy. I think this audience here probably doesn't need to hear that it's important and that we need to figure out ways to make it real, make it happen. The problem we have and the challenge we have is the rest of the world doesn't understand it. It involves the corporate world as well as kind of the general public. So why am I making these remarks to you? So first of all, I run the Institute for Experiential AI here. And one thing I can tell you for sure is and we're very applied in some aspects of the Institute. We do basic research, but we also do a lot of applied work because we think applications can drive a lot of interesting things for research and for education. Almost every project we do with companies, with organizations, with government, every one of these AI projects almost immediately turns into a data project first. Why? Because AI today, for better or worse, has evolved through machine learning, and machine learning was used as kind of the way to make stuff work because we couldn't address, for 70 years, we couldn't address the basic problems of how the heck does human intelligence work. So at the end of the day, we all fell back and said, okay, we can't figure out the algorithms, but there's a lot of data there, and the data is increasing, especially with digital transformation, computers everywhere, all of that. A lot of the stuff is making it into data. So there was like this whole movement of saying, forget about solving AI problems, just look at the data and try to get to a solution from just what you have in the record. And one of my favorite quotes there that I use a lot is that what has changed over the last, I don't know, few decades, it's not that we came up with brilliant algorithms in machine learning to enable this. So there's been some advances. The majority of it comes from the fact that there's a heck of a lot more data today than there was last year, than there was 10 years ago, than there was 20 years ago, et cetera. So that data resource is a big deal. Now, you just heard comments that, some of the large providers were shushing companies like Liberty Source when they start talking about, hey, you can't just buy AI and make it work. You need data. And this resonates a lot with me because I call these kind of the AI secrets that the AI haves, the company who are the providers of the AI technology, don't want you to talk about, which is, number one, data is absolutely essential, and it's not any data. Just recording stuff somewhere doesn't mean that you actually have usable data. These companies, so one of the secrets is no data, no AI. The other secret is human intervention is absolutely necessary to make the technology work and to capture that feedback data. So with that said, you can look at, an example I use frequently is, all of us here probably use Google search. Google search at its core, when you give it 2 to 2.5 keyword search phrase, it decides what's the ranking of the relevant results through something called MLR, machine learned relevance. That's a little machine learning engine that measures about 500 to 700 attributes per page, and then gives you the result. Now, what the public doesn't know, what Google doesn't talk much about, and by the way, this applies to ChatGPT and everything else, is that engine is retrained 3 to 4 times a day based on a lot of feedback from people. Not the click-throughs from the general public only, but there's an army of search editorial folks. These are generalists whose job is to look at search results and say, move this down, move this up, This is a meme. It means something completely different. Information that's very hard for a machine to guess, but you need kind of human common sense reasoning, intuition, and knowledge to get it. So that's a huge example of this intervention. Now, what has happened at these companies, whether it's a Google, Amazon, Microsoft, OpenAI, is they actually built an infrastructure for capturing every little bit of data from these interactions. So they actually measure exactly kind of what happens. They record it. And they've gotten really sophisticated at measuring all of this. And this is coming from generalists. Now think about what's happening in companies, in government, in organizations. We have a lot more than just generalists. We have specialists. We have people who are highly paid to do certain tasks. They troubleshoot problems, they solve problems, they answer customer queries. Yet in most companies, none of this data is really captured. None of it is used to close that machine learning loop that you need to enable AI. So, why am I saying to you all this? Part of this is culture. And, you know, some people say, hey, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So it doesn't matter what your intentions are. If you don't have the right culture in place, nothing is going to happen. And this is what happens with a lot of these companies. A lot of these companies and organizations don't have people who understand the value of that data, how to capture it, how to use it, and then how to interpret it, and how to be careful with what comes out of it. So to me, the agenda for data literacy is huge. It's absolutely important. We heard yesterday at dinner from Provost Madigan, where he talked about literacy in general and the fact that there are really measurable signals, strong statistical signals that populations within the US with lower literacy rates have much worse health outcomes. Things that we can't ignore. And now we're entering an age where data is becoming just as important as literacy, right? So the 3 R's, I guess, might become 3 R&D or something like that. But understanding the basics, understanding that, hey, not only is data is valuable, but I need to understand how to reason about it. And I'll part ways with you to tell you, I mean, the challenge is huge, and I look forward for this day and tomorrow's half day, you know, what the results will be, because I've been struggling with this for at least 3 decades to try to explain not just the importance of data, but the fact that it can be a huge asset. I'll part ways with you with some very simple stuff on literacy, right? The notion of average. We all understand the average number of something, right? But if you have, people don't understand basically that average is a function of what the population distribution is, for example, if you're talking about people. So if you have a party that has grandparents and their grandkids, and you report the average age, right? The average is nonsensical, right? Because it's probably going to predict something in the 30s or whatever. But what you have are little kids and their grandparents, right? So it's a barbell distribution. Even worse, let's talk in companies that are sophisticated. When people talk about the average number of visitors per page, right? Average is only meaningful when you're talking about something that's normally distributed, which has a very, understood mode. Number of visitors per page, or number of people who read a book, or they have these power laws, right? It means very few people do a lot of visits or a lot of reads or a lot of whatever consumption. And most people do very little. When you report the average there, it is almost as nonsensical. But most people don't understand that, right? So these are very, very basic things. I haven't even got into kind of bigger moments and all of that stuff, and how to interpret them and how to avoid data and how easily it can be manipulated and used to kind of lie about anything you like. So all of this is so important in the world we're moving into, and digitization and AI is making it even more important. And now we're getting other challenges that are saying, hey, we need AI literacy, which we're actually working on programs for that. But you can't have AI literacy without data literacy. And it's almost nonsensical. So some of the basics have to change, and I look forward to you guys beginning to define an agenda of a work program to fix all this. So welcome. I hope the next day and a half are very productive with tomorrow's limited workshop, and look forward to seeing the results. Thank you.